Hello everyone, it's Geisha. Welcome back. Today I'm going to show you how I make this card, and we're going through the process from the ground up. So we start with the cards, the embossing, the applying, the printing, and the details. So today we're going to focus on making the base card. Now if you have a colored cardstock card, then that's okay. I buy my cardstock white and then I dye it to the color I want. So we're going to color some cardstock first, and let's do blue. So I have 3 blue acrylic paints here, and they're from the cheap store. And I'm just going to pour some in this little container. I find this a little gray, so I'm going to add a bit of green. See what that does. And basically this is how I mix my paints and whatnots. So now it's time to add some metallic paint, and I have these big jars from Home Depot. They go a long way. So I pour a little bit in a smaller container that's easily manageable, and I will just pour a bit in. And I add a little bit of water so that everything can be dissolved. And it's best to mix your paints with a little bit of water and then add it to the bulk here. Alright, I think this is good to go. So I have 2 cups of water in here and the paints that I made. And I'll just mix this together here. I like to keep my paintbrush in it because the metallic does sink to the bottom. And I stir it to agitate it so that all the paints are mixed, and I will add 1 and 2 sheets of paper. I can tell you I might not like the colors that come out of it. Then I will turn it over to see that some of the paints has settled against the paper. And if you leave that, it will make spots. And I will let it dry somewhere. Now I'll pour this in a container with a tight fitting lid so that I can store it and use it again. Alright, so I'm back. This is a different color cardstock, but I didn't want to wait for the other ones to dry, so paper shrinks a little bit after it has gone wet. This page is not exactly 8.5 by 11 anymore, and it has the tendency to wrinkle a little bit on the top. So I will go to my ironing board and iron this on steam setting so that there's a little bit of moisture coming back in the paper. And then I will put, well, up to 10 or so under a stack of books so to flatten them out a little bit. And this has been flattened. It is not near as bad as it was. So the only downside of painting and dyeing your own paper is that it gets a little wrinkly on the edges. And I just live with it and I don't mind. I like the unpredictability of the patterns you can find on these kind of papers. So because I added a metallic paint to my paint, there's a sheen to the paper. I don't do this always, but for card making I will do this. I will now cut the base of the card. Now this is 11 and this is 8.5. And so that is 5.5, but because it shrank a little bit, I'm going to cut this a scant 5.5 inch. And as always, I use my ruler and my cutter for this. Now, this is a nice shiny side and this is lighter. Sometimes I will use this as the outside, and then I will fold the dark on the inside. And another time I will fold the lighter side to the inside and the darker side to the outside. And so this is the base of the card. Up to the next step. Now it's time to make the background, and we're going to use a book page, then we're going to emboss, and then we're going to apply ink so that the embossing show. And thank you to Pam from the Paper Outpost of showing us how to do that, and I will link her original video below. Now, not every book page will work. I've tried a few different pages, and some of the older book pages crumble when you bring them through the embossing machine. And where the pattern is, it cracks sometimes. And so I had to figure out what works and what doesn't. So I'm now using new book pages, or in this instance, a dictionary page. And I did try it without coffee dyeing, and I didn't like how it turned out. So I did dye my dictionary pages with coffee, and I added a little bit of metallic gold paint to it. It gives it a hint of a sheen. I don't think the camera will pick it up, but it is there, and it's just makes it a little difference. Now I'm preparing my paper for the embossing folder. So my embossing machine is only 6 inches wide, so I'm cutting this smaller than 6 inches so that it will go through no problem. And this is the folder I'm using. Another thing I found out is that not all folders are the same thickness, and so you have to adjust your plates on what works to have it go through. And if your folder is thicker and you have a hard time cranking it through your machine, you might crack your pattern in your paper. You can't really tell yet, but wait until we put ink on it. All right, let's ink this up. This method will use up a lot of ink from your ink pads, and I've had to revive my ink pads by spritzing water glycerin on my ink pad, let it sit for a couple of hours so that it can absorb the water. And I've done it a few times already with this orange, and I can see that the ink is now almost really gone. So, and then I like to use some red. Now you can see what it does. And where's my brown? Here's my brown. Okay, I'm not totally happy with this one. I have another one over here. Let's do a blue variation. And I'm going to use green first. See, I can't even see where it is. Always go lightly first. You can always add more later. Now I'm using light blue. And not everywhere. And I leave the page whole after I've embossed it. This way I have a place to hold on to the paper when I'm actually rubbing my ink over it. And I use a paper underneath because this way you can actually go off your paper without smearing your work surface. Maybe I'll do some more green. Well, you get the drift. So now we're going to cut it to size. For my card, I need about 3 3/4 by 5. So I will cut that from here. I'm not going to put this on the card yet. I'm going to add the embellishments first, then I will add it to the card. So first thing what I do is I want to add something on the left here to add some texture. And a lot of times I use lace or cheesecloth. In this instance, those are too thin. They will see through and they're not doing their job on saying, okay, here I am. And so I like to use burlap, but I could use fabric. This is the right side of the fabric and this is the wrong side. And sometimes you might want to look at the wrong side of the fabrics. They might actually work better. If another piece of fabric here, that would work. Here I have a piece of paper that I coffee dyed with some glitter in it, the same as I showed you before for my pages, but this is a little darker. Then I used a border punch to punch this out. Looks real nice actually. Would work as well, but it is a little thin and it kind of merges with the background, so I don't want to use this. This would work. Maybe today I'm going to use this fabric here. I think I will use this fabric today. I will lightly glue this in place. You can just use glue and glue this in place, but I really like to use my sewing machine. And I will now go to the sewing machine and do a zigzag stitch all around. Now it's time to look for a cluster that works with the card. And I've kind of picked this one already because it's dark enough so that it shows, and the butterfly is light enough so that it will show also. I really like this cluster, but you can see that how it kind of disappears, and then I would like to use this for something else instead. And here I've punched out a circle. This is a, I think, 7/8 or a 3/4 inch circle. This is a butterfly that I've fussy cutted, and I can just add these two together either with glue or with a stapler. And now I have a tiny little cluster for maybe a journaling card, like so. So I'm going to use this one over here, and I'm going to use my favorite glue, Aleen's Tacky glue. Now it's time to add the sentiments over here. And how I go about is I type out a page of different sentiments, and I will cut this apart with my scallop scissors, and then I will glue them to a metallic painted piece of cardstock. This is champagne. I just paint this with metallic paint, and you can see some strokes here, but when it's cut up small and once the sentiment is placed on there, you can't really tell. And then I add a bit of stickles to the side just to make it a bit special. And then I just add this to my card, whichever one goes best with the card I have. And of course you could do words. I have here my journaling card. This one says commit and believe. And yeah, so once the sentiment is on, I can glue this to the page, and then I have a card ready to send out. Well, I think that was it. If you have any questions, please let me know in the comments below. And yeah, I hope to see you in the next one. Take care. Bye.